And this is CC Arshagra in conversation with, a wide open conversation that was birthed as a dream child and began with a conversation with Ron Whitehead. I'm going to ask you all to take a look at all the previous ones. Every one is unique. This has been a brilliant thing that has put a smile on my face, and the last guy said, "Why are you smiling through the whole thing?" So it is a open mind, just whatever conversation happens, wherever it goes, wherever it starts, and whenever it begins, and wherever it ends. And people are tired. It's the end of a long day, and I'm with the producer of the event. This is Debbie Kilday, and you go with the whole three names, or is that good?
I do.
Okay, and it is?
Debbie Tosun Kilday.
Debbie Tosun Kilday, founder and CEO of the International.
It's actually the...
How's it go?
It's the National Beat Poetry Foundation, but the yearly festival is called the National and International Beat Poetry Festival.
Okay, and it has been brilliant, and I've been told during the course of these interviews that it's about 10 years old?
8 years.
8 years.
Well, it's 9 years, almost 10 years.
Okay, 8, 9, 10 years old, and I discovered it in about 4 years ago, and I've been coming 3 years in a row now. And I live nearby because I'm now living in the northwest corner of Connecticut, and that's where we are, in the northwest corner of Connecticut, somewhere around Barkhamsted, New Hartford area. Not exactly sure where, but that's okay. So that's respecting the host. We have an amazing host for this venue, and it's priceless, and people are coming from around the nation, and they've come from around the world just to be at this weekend. And last night there was a concert at a town nearby at a city hall. Today was all outside, where many people were received their national and international and lifetime achievement awards this year.
Yes, we had them today. Carlos Raul Duflor.
Carlos Raul Duflor received a
lifetime
achievement award from the
New Generation Beat Poet Laureate.
as a New Generation Beat Poet Laureate. So there's 3 titles so far. I'm getting my mind around this. You're going to teach me.
And Lorraine Corelli also.
Lorraine Corelli also from New York, from the Bronx.
Yeah,
she was cool. She was very happy. I'm going to interview tomorrow if she's here again. And did she go home?
No, she's going home.
Yeah, she was tired. She had a lot of fun now. All right, Lorraine's here. And she did a lot of work. I just came from her online Bronx book fair, I think it was called. That was pretty amazing.
I was there.
Yeah, you were there too. Yeah. So that was a lot of fun, and it was like 4 events in one. It was like 5 hours long. It was really a lot of work must have went into that. So she hosted that.
She does an exceptional job with that.
Yeah, she did it in the subject, and as you are doing it, so you get a lot of kudos a lot. But she's very humble in it all. She's always, thank you, and she gets up and she does the job and does it. She's always working, but her soul shines through, and she lets it in. She lets it in, and I think it's she's too busy to let it in and make you see it, but it's there. I think. Am I right?
I don't know what it is. It's something I just feel I should do to help.
Yeah, you're wonderfully humble about it. It's really a purpose. It's a deep purpose.
It's just that the traditional poetry groups that I belonged to in the past, they were never quite accepting, and some of them would ask me to leave and not let me read on the open mic.
Wow.
And I'm an artist first. I used to be a painter and sculptor. I have nerve damage from Lyme disease.
Oh, sorry
so
to
I
hear.
don't,
I'm glad you're here.
No, but I can't hold like a paintbrush or put the pressure on the clay to make pottery like I used to. And I used to make jewelry, and cut stones.
Wow. So have you had any shows in the course of your life? For a show that many gallery shows. So you got a little CV, a lineup of stuff you've done with that? You have a body of work still, or do you sell it all?
No.
Where's the archives of your art life? I just asked that because mine is piling up in the Netherlands.
A lot were sold.
Oh, good.
When I started, when I was painting, it used to break my heart to give the painting away. Like,
Yes.
I don't know what it was, but I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I knew I couldn't like recreate it exactly or whatever, and it put my whole heart and soul into a painting. I remember a couple, they got married, and I gave them a painting for their wedding present.
Yeah.
And as I was handing it to them, I was thinking, I wonder where they're going to hang it. Are they going to throw it away? Or are they
in the garbage, in the trash, in the attic.
You know, as time goes on, what's going to happen?
Run into it with his bicycle.
So I started doing pottery.
Okay.
Then I could make, pottery that looks the same, sort of, but they were all individual pieces.
By hand or with a wheel?
Yeah, on the wheel.
Okay. And so you learned the whole kiln, firing, glazing.
Oh, yeah.
Did you give a kiln?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
And so anyway, it didn't bother me as much to use, to make pottery and sell it and give it away or whatever.
Because now it's being used at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate. When I started making pottery, I was walking by a florist shop one day, and this girl recognized me from high school. And she came running out and she said, oh, I haven't seen you in 5 years or whatever she said to me. And she said, I work for this florist now, and she said, why don't you come in and see all the flowers and everything. So I went in there, and then the owner said to me, what do you do? Do you do anything creative? And I said, yeah, I'm a potter, And he said, do you have any samples? Like you could show me? And I did. I had some pottery in the car.
Oh, just happy. Okay, cool.
I did.
Yeah, you went and travel with your wares. Why not?
And I would make these planters. Okay, so I brought one in, and he said, oh, that's great. And he says, how many do you have with you? And I said, I only have 3, And he said, I'd like to order 50. And can you have them to me next week? I got to start making pottery and dry it and then put it in the kiln and glaze it and all this other stuff. So, but I did. And then he ordered 300.
Wow.
The next month.
Did he give you 2 days to do that?
No, he gave me a month to do that.
Oh, good God.
But what he was doing...
And each one was slightly unique? He let you do that? Okay.
So what he was doing with all these pots, he was putting the flower arrangements in the pottery. And when people would order to go to the hospital, if someone was in the hospital and you send them flowers, he would send it in the pottery instead of a plastic, or a vase or whatever. He was sending it in the pottery. And he was very happy, and I was very happy. He was paying me very well.
Oh, wow.
And then he invited me to come and work, 2 days a week.
Oh, okay.
And he would show me the whole business of flower arranging.
Oh, wow.
And I did that for a year.
Wow.
But it was really good. It was very good.
Cool. So, all right. So, pottery, and how was the transition?
Well,
to the going to the open
I was always a sculptor, and I was talking about it to other people today, how I had a full-paid scholarship to the Art Institute of Boston.
Oh, wow.
And 2 weeks before I was to leave for Boston, my mother was in a car accident, and she had traumatic brain injury.
Wow. And
I canceled my plans, and I went.
You turned down the scholarship? You had to?
Well, I didn't turn it down. I just didn't use it. Wow. But I'll tell you what happened after that.
Okay.
So I had to get a job right away, and I was going out with this guy. They were neighbors, 2 houses away from us. My first boyfriend, and his father owned a shop in Thomaston, making brass cabinet knobs.
Okay.
Okay, so he said he would give me a job, because he knew I was desperate because my mother couldn't work,
Wow, yeah. How old?
How old was I? 18.
Wow. So you got a scholarship right out of high school, man.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's not an easy. That's not.
No.
That's the one attached to the Museum of Boston, right?
Mm.
Yeah.
So, but that's a funny story in itself. I'll tell you in a minute. But anyway, so I took the job, of course, and I worked for my boyfriend's father, and I was making brass cabinet knobs,
Wow.
and I did that for a few years, like 4 years.
It's like it's like a machine shop job, or is it an artsy job? It's like a
No.
machine shop job.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Using the lathes and the screw machine.
Wow, yeah.
And I did the whole thing. I mean, I was his only employee.
Wow, you ran you ran the lathes, yeah.
And I would spray the,
That's
the
a labor
lacquer
job.
and stuff.
That's a labor job, the machine shop. The oil is mist, and I did a job like that for a while.
The floor in that factory had about this much grease on the floor. And it was like embedded in there.
I did a job like that for about 6 months, and I had to get out because then I was still a teenager and I wanted to go out at night, but I couldn't get rid of the oil that was in me. It was like
my clothes were so
it's like you couldn't get it out of you, and it's
the
like
smell of the oil.
Yeah. So it's like that last. I think about it, but it was a good job. I mean, I was just 18 years old, and I was working a 55-hour week, taking home over $500 a week.
But I had to take care of my mother, and she was kind of helpless. So anyway, I remember.
How's mom now?
She passed away
okay.
Last year.
Wow. So you took care of all these years. She still struggled.
No, not last year. The year before.
From that day on, she struggled the whole way. Or she get better?
No, she struggled after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a burden.
But I didn't end up. I mean, she recovered enough. She moved back to Rhode Island, where she was from.
Okay.
And she actually took care of her mother.
Oh wow! Okay, all right, okay.
So good. I mean, she wasn't completely.
Oh, there was an uptick there. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're making knobs now. Where are we here? Okay.
Well, so I remember I was making, I think it was $2.40 an hour.
Ooh, big money.
And the price of we had. Gas, heat, we had stove in the kitchen and the stove in the living room to heat the place, and we had this apartment, and so I mean it was a lot of money, food and everything, so, and electricity, and I wasn't making enough.
Wow.
So I remember
those hourly wages down
I remember
there
used to be like a chicken place in Thomaston, like a chicken farm store or something, and they had these big bags, like 20 pounds of chicken wings for like $3, seriously. And this was like 1972. And I remember I would buy the big bag, like when I got paid, and I would buy the big bag of chicken wings, and then I would go and buy lettuce and maybe tomato or cucumber.
Any Frank's hot sauce?
And I would, and because I had to feed my mother.
Yeah.
And I would buy a box of cereal and like a gallon of milk or something.
Wow.
And then she would.
Many people have seen this story, but too many people have no idea how many people live this way. But go on.
But anyway, I remember I would cook for her, and she would say, "Debbie, aren't you going to eat? With me? I mean, aren't you going to?" I said, "I'll sit with you, Ma, but, I said, my boss took me out to this big lunch, and, I'm not hungry."
And did he?
Because no. Oh. No, I was saving the food for her because I couldn't afford, to...
And here I am asking you where your humble humility comes from, and you're burying me. Go on.
So anyway, the boyfriend and his family, they would invite me every Sunday. His mother would make spaghetti on Sundays, and they would invite me over. We lived 2 houses away from each other. Okay. So I ate once a week.
Wow.
I ate once a week.
Wow. Yeah. So that's not bulimia or anorexia. That's just
starvation.
Starvation by poverty.
But
what do you call it? It's just the reality of your financial obligation.
See, like he was my boyfriend when I was 14.
What do you call it?
He was my first boyfriend. We
Right.
went out from 14, and, 14, and, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14, 14 then he went to college. He went to the University of Hartford, and I was, taking care of my mother.
Taking care of mom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when he would come home for holidays and stuff, he would take me out to eat and stuff.
Okay.
But then I got a second job, also in Thomaston, and I was working in a plating shop.
Wow.
And I remember it was a dangerous job. I just remember it was a dangerous job. Someone they almost fell into the vat of, plating.
Chemicals. Yeah. That's some heavy stuff.
Stuff like that, yeah. They had to go to the hospital. They burned their hand or something, So I did that. So I was working 2 jobs. And I remember coming home.
Of course, the second one paid way over $1.70 an hour.
No.
Bigger?
No.
Was it better?
No, it didn't.
The same minimum wage.
Yeah. And I remember.
I was trying to tell a joke, but there's not much funny about this, but go on. Okay.
But, so anyway, so I remember I was coming home from the second job. So I was working 7 a.m. to 2, and then from 3 or 3:30 to, I think it was, I worked 2 shifts, I think. It was till 11 on that second job. So I was coming home and I got in a car accident. I fell asleep at the wheel.
Wow.
And then I almost lost my left eye. If you look close, you could see there's a scar there.
Yeah.
I had, they said, there was a wonderful doctor at Waterbury Hospital that saved my eye.
Wow.
It was 45 stitches on the inside of my eye.
Wow.
And he had 80 stitches on the outside. I'll never forget that one.
Wow, no. Did you not fall asleep? Did you remain conscious on the whole ambulance ride, the whole thing? I mean, when you say
what
never
happened
fell
was I was a couple minutes from home, and this car was turning left, and I had the radio on in the car. I had a Volkswagen Beetle at that time.
Oh.
The radio was on, and all of a sudden I didn't hear the radio. And then I couldn't see, and I grabbed the wheel, I couldn't see, I couldn't hear. And then I went into the car in front of me. He was stopped and turning left. And he had a big Cadillac, I remember.
Oh, jeez.
And then he got out of the car, and then I came to, and I was pinned against the steering wheel. And what had happened is my head had hit the steering wheel, my glasses flew off, but cut my eye. Before, glass lenses in those days. Right?
Yeah.
And then my glasses
metal dashboards.
My glasses were found in the back seat.
Wow.
With the no lens or whatever.
Wow.
And so anyway, the guy got out of the car and he's yelling at me. He's yelling at me like, "You hit my car, and now my bumper is going to be damaged." There was no damage to his car. My Volkswagen Beetle was completely, demolished. But anyway.
Wow.
But the Volkswagen Beetle did live later on. Wow. It did.
Wow.
I gave it to Caner Technical School.
Okay.
In Waterbury, and the students fixed it up. They completely restored it. It was unbelievable. I did get it.
The frame wasn't bent.
No.
Wow. Okay.
And but anyway, so that ended my second job.
So, but you still went to work? Went back to work at the first one?
Oh yeah. Wow. I had to.
How could you function after that? I mean, did you get your eye back? Were you seeing again?
No, I had to stay to work for. I had to wear these dark glasses, sunglasses. I couldn't be in any light or anything for 3 or 4 weeks.
That's not bad. Wow, you survived a big crash. And the damage was basically the eye, as far as that goes, with concussion. Did they ever?
Oh yeah, I remember when I went to the hospital. Well, anyway, there was. I knew this kid from high school. His house was right across from where this happened, and I actually, the guy that I hit, he helped me get out of the car. He was yelling at me. He wanted me to see the damage or whatever.
All right.
I got out of the car.
You must have been
And
bleeding.
I went over. I was wearing a suede jacket, okay, suede jacket.
With blood on it, I'm
And
guessing.
and I went over to their house, and I rang the doorbell. And the mother answered the door, and she was like, and then I said, I was just in a car accident, and she's like, come in. And she didn't say anything to me. She just like, come in. And then I said, can I use your bathroom? I said, and the kid, his name was Rich. He was at home, and this other kid that I went to high school with, they were both like at the house there, and they said, we'll drive her to the hospital. We shouldn't wait for an ambulance. This is bad. They said. So I went into their bathroom and I looked in their mirror. And I was like, there's like all this blood.
Oh God!
And my eye, I was like, I think I lost my left eye. I'm looking, I could see with my right eye, but I'm like,
oh wow,
my left eye, I don't see anything there. It was all bloody. And so they drove me to the hospital, and
they drove me to Waterbury from Thomaston. That was the closest?
No, this was Waterbury where I had the accident.
Oh, okay.
Where, I lived with my mother in an apartment.
Oh, okay, all right, okay.
So,
you commuted to Thomaston, that's where the work was, all right.
So anyway, I remember being in the car and they're saying, I kept going like this, and don't touch it, and then they're saying, we don't think it's there, we don't think your eye's there,
Oh God.
But they
so
drove me.
swollen up.
Yeah. So they drove me to the hospital, and then that doctor, like a miracle worker, who would even take the time now to do all that?
Yeah, where's your insurance? Get in line, sit in the chair. Yeah.
He didn't even say anything.
Yeah.
He just fixed my eye. But anyway, it's funny. I mean, it's odd funny.
Yeah, no. After all these years, the fact that you could say it's funny is a good thing. All right. So now that you're telling your life story, you might as well keep going unless you're too tired. We could part 4. We could.
I have been.
When's the last time we told your story on camera? It's been a while.
I've never told this story.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so let's meet Debbie. It's like everyone knows Debbie, but no one knows Debbie. So here we go. So you
anyway,
get into an accident, you heal, you're no longer working 2 jobs, you're still taking care of your mom.
So I was still working the one job, and I remember asking, now this is my boyfriend's father, right? Mm-hmm. That, we were going out for a while, right? So I asked, I said, I really am struggling, to pay the bills and everything with my mother and everything. Could I have a raise? I said, if you want to hear funny stories or whatever.
Oh, this is going to be a punchline.
Can I have a raise, So his mother said, because she did the books, Yeah. She says, how much of a raise do you want? And I said, 25 cents,
Oh, big money. Huh? Greedy, you know good greed.
And she's like, that is way too much.
Oh, Jesus.
You can laugh about it now, but I mean, she was serious.
Wow.
That is way too much. I can't believe you're even, suggesting that. She says we could give you 10 cents more. I was like, okay. But then I decided
You put your higher tax bracket and your check went down.
I decided then this is not going to work. Like I have to do something else.
Yeah, there's got to be another.
And I remember I went to apply for food stamps. Now, people don't realize in those days when you applied for food stamps, it wasn't like it is today. They would ask you to pay. Well, this is what happened. They would assign you to a person that was going to be your caseworker, okay? So I went for food stamps. And this woman interviewed me, and she said to me, now I was living in Waterbury with my mother, okay? But my father and my grandfather, the road is named in Wolcott after my grandfather, Tosun Road.
Okay.
So, so this woman was interviewing me, and she's like, "This is all you have, money. You're telling me this is what you make and everything." And I'm like, "Yes, and I need help with food, to buy food." And she says to me, "Come on, you have a road named after you."
Oh, okay. Your family name. They
But she said,
They
you
use
have
that-
you have a road.
Oh, you have a road. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
And I said, "That's not named after me. It's named after my grandfather." She
Yeah.
goes, "You're loaded and you're trying to use the system." She says, "Okay, I'll prove that you get food stamps. You have to pay $40 a week for $30 of food stamps." So
That's sad. The math didn't work in my head just now.
So she gave me the slip. Seriously, she gave me the slip, and then I went home and I talked to my boyfriend. I said, "Can I borrow $40 so I can get the $30 worth of food?"
So they give you $70 or $30 a week.
No, it was
month.
$30
A month, but you had to buy in one time at
40.
40. So the first month and a half was on you, and then they would keep you
No,
going.
no, you still had to pay.
You had
Yes,
to pay every
yes.
month.
That's what this story was. Yes.
Wait a minute, this is making more than no sense at all. Okay, this is what my so you give them 40
couldn't-
a month, and they give you 30 in return.
Yes.
You lose 10 a month,
Yes.
and you did this.
She did this on purpose because, she thought I had money, I guess.
Yeah, but what happened to the accountant when she said no way that this is a good deal? Didn't you ask your boyfriend's mother how bad a deal that was?
Well,
Wow, the government did that.
Yeah.
They charged people $40 a month to give them $30 in food stamps,
Yes.
and that was the government ripping off the poor, taking $10 out of them.
Well, the caseworker. It was
that-
really
am
the
I getting this
caseworker.
right?
Yes, you are.
Oh, this is sad.
Okay, so I bought I took a loan basically, and I bought those first food stamps, and I bought food for my mother and everything, and then I didn't do it anymore. I lost that. 'Cause
Yeah,
I couldn't.
It's a
afford
bad
it.
deal.
I couldn't afford it.
yeah, you lose. How can I afford it? If I give you $40, you'll give me $30 worth of food, and I come to you because I need $30. I can't believe this story. I'm really. This was real.
Yeah, yeah. Because I asked for a new caseworker, and they said once you're assigned your caseworker, you can't change. So I knew I had no chance.
Would it make a difference if you slept on the street with your name and were homeless?
So anyway, so what happened after that was I went out of my way, and I applied for a job in Cheshire.
What kind?
A factory job. Because that's all I was doing.
See, but that's the thing I'm thinking is about. Like you got a scholarship, and then somehow fell into factory work, and then in order to get out of factory work, you found more factory work 3 times.
Well,
but
that's
what
to
happened?
make
What happened
money.
to the world valued you and gave you a scholarship? Where?
I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Yeah. How did the fact that you were touched and believed in, and then your mother happened to you, and then you didn't. Where did that gift go? Because that's what you're doing for others now. You're lifting them.
Well, anyway,
I'm jumping ahead, but
you're jumping ahead.
But I'm seeing that I'm trying to marry the compassion of who you are to the mission you're
But
on.
I started doing pottery, like in my boyfriend's basement, okay? And then we went into business together because he had some money, more money than me. And when he got out of college, and we were doing wedding photography. And we were doing like the whole process of developing the film,
Okay.
and we even got to where we were doing color prints, stuff like
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so we were doing that.
This is before digital. For those of you that are just born, you had to
35
actually take your
millimeter.
roll of film, and hopefully, when you give them the 12 or 24 or 36 pictures, that you get back some of them that look good, and you got to wait.
Yeah, you gotta wait. And so I was doing that, for extra income. But I took this other job in Cheshire. That was the main income. And
so is the minimum wage now up to $3.10?
It's like $4.
It was $4, yeah. I think I forget my first minimum wage job, but I think it was like $1.76 or something like that. $2 something. Yeah.
And they, so that was good money. And what I was making at the factory, I was making the instrument panels for the major airlines.
Oh.
It was called Airpacks, was the name of the company. And so, that was an important job.
Except it wasn't a union wage.
No, there was no union.
So you should have ran over to Pratt & Whitney at that point and forget $70 an hour.
But I remember I had to use this two-step epoxy to glue the glass in.
Here it comes.
And I worked with this man that had done that job for 40 years. He never took a vacation. He refused to take a vacation. So then they hired me to be his helper and learn his job because he was old, right? So anyway, he trained me. And then as I was working, the skin eroded off my hands, both hands, and up to my sleeve, okay? It was like I had third-degree burns.
Wow.
And I went to, they sent me to a dermatologist. And
they're in-house dermatologists.
Yeah. And then I went and made my own appointment to somebody else.
An actual doctor?
No, to another dermatologist.
Okay.
Because they were saying,
Here's some Vaseline.
Yeah, basically, here's a Band-Aid.
Here's a Band-Aid, yeah.
So I went to this other guy, and he said, what is it that you're using, So I asked them at the factory, could I take the empty cans, out of here? And he was like, what do you want them for? And I said, I just, I want to see what's in it, because there was no ingredients listed. And there's no OSHA, let's put it that way.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
before OSHA. Right.
So they said, no, you're losing your job if you do that,
Wow.
And so I said, okay. So one night I snuck the cans out.
Good for you.
Empty cans. And I sent them off to a lab. And this was taking all the money I made per hour there, with all this. And cancer causing, doesn't go away and goes into your bloodstream, all this stuff. All these warnings were on this. So
Wow.
once you mix them together.
Right.
Separately they were okay.
Yeah.
Once you mix them.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
So now you're looking at either you weren't allowed to take the cans, or a lawsuit, or a class action, or where'd you go with that?
You're gonna lose your job, right?
You lose your job.
So
did
I
they
said I need to, do something else. I said I'm going to go to school.
So you didn't pursue any legal?
No.
Wow.
I knew there was no chance there.
Wow.
But I said I'm going to go to school. I decided I'm going to go to school. I had seen a little ad for Computer Processing Institute in East Hartford. I saw this little ad in the newspaper, and I called it on my lunch hour, and they said, and I went to the credit union at work, and I asked to get a loan, to go to school. And I did get the loan. And so anyway, so I said, I can't work days anymore. You're going to have to give me another job. I need to work at night, though, right? So I went to school during the day, and they gave me another job at night. It wasn't much better, but it wasn't that deadly. But the guy that trained me, he took a vacation, and he died that week that he took vacation. He had all those toxins in his body all those years.
Wow. And his family never did nothing about it?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Wow. Maybe this video will wake up somebody in this situation. I don't know. Maybe there's no
justice in this world?
No, there's no justice in this world. That wasn't what I was going to say. Statute of limitations on things like this. There probably are, But what the government didn't have back then, like the ACLU maybe, or something, there must be something out there inside OSHA or inside, some legal organization that takes cases that no one else wants because they're not a corporation. Pro bono work. Not that the criminal justice system it does any good with getting justice, because mostly the worst you could do is if they murder you, you might get a check because you were murdered. But it usually comes at the cost of signing a piece of paper saying they didn't murder you and here's your money. That's how they plead out when they're even caught guilty, so they can keep killing people. Unfortunately, that's the problem with the criminal justice system being led by greed instead of humankind and responsibility and accountability, and that we're at that stage with laws now with AI and genetics, because 20 years ago, about 20 years ago, I did a painting series that was based on Massachusetts came up with a genetic bill of rights. There was none. And there are 10 principles written by Ralph Nader's sister Claire, and the head of a organization called Council for Responsible Genetics. And not in your case with toxins and things like that, but stuff that's coming online, AI and getting all this nanotechnology and what's in the food. There were 10 things that they listed, and they literally got it into legislation in Massachusetts, and it was up for a vote, but it sat there and got squished. So during the years, and this is a parallel story, not to take away from where you're headed, because the justice that she didn't get and the justice that this generation is about to not get, there's a parallel story being born out of this conversation. So that's why I want to share this with her and you, because maybe if nothing can be done for her retroactively, and what changed the course of her life, but also created a woman who gives and creates life and justice for people who usually don't get a shake. So your soul's on a good ride, that's for sure. I don't know if it comes with a paycheck, but you're good. So anyway, so the Genetic Bill of Rights sat and then for about 8 years, and then it got flushed aside. But the organization that put this together was called the Council for Responsible Genetics. It's the oldest genetic watch group in the nation. It was just north of Harvard Square in Porter Square. And it had a magazine called Gene Watch that was its publication backbone. It was a sort of a trade magazine for scientists that wanted to be aware of cutting edge technology when it comes to genetics. And so this thing happened in Seattle it was a big protest called the Battle in Seattle. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
No.
So there was a big protest in Seattle where the cops came down and people got sprayed and stuff like that, and it was a huge thing. And then shortly after that, there was the IMF World Bank protest in D.C. And in between the two, there was the Kendall Square was the epicenter of biotech on Earth. And it used to be an empty lot behind MIT, and then over the years, skyscrapers, and most of the biotech companies were in there with a little Marriott in the middle of it. And it was just north of Boston, across the river in the Charles there. I don't know if you know there, but I lived in that area. So Somerville, Cambridge, Boston. Anyway, for those of you that know the area, if not, basically greater Boston. So they decided to produce the very first biotech conference, where they brought in about 8,000 people from around the world to talk about the future of what we're living in now. AI, nanotechnology, genetics, implants, robots, all this stuff that's going on right now, and whether we have any rights or whether there are even any laws at all protecting us for this oncoming technology. There are none. Same with her and her situation. So I heard this, and I was doing poetry, and I was starting to gravitate toward that. The activists were being more of artists than the poets were, a little bit, and because there was too much of what was going on. It's another long story. But as much as I stayed committed to poetry and open mics and having a voice, I was starting to gravitate over, and that's where my project over 20 years ago, the Human Room and the Open Voice started, which is a side note. So in between those two events, this protest happened. It was called biodevastation. So this little art place over in Jamaica Plain, which is a borough of Boston, a spontaneous celebration. I think the guy's name was Pelletier. And he decided to put together a counter rally where on the green across from the library and the Copley Hotel and that little green there where the church is. Anyway, they decided to do a counter rally after 2.5 days to teach it. So on Thursday night, I hear about this and I take my camera and I go out and I'm up for like almost 20 hours a day for 4 days. I can't get enough of it. It changed my life. So I'm doing Vandana Shiva. Have you ever heard her name? She was the keynote. She wrote it. She's the one saving all of organic seeds around the world, and she's a physicist out of India. Anyway, she's one of the most powerful free speakers on the planet as far as women goes. She's up there with Chomsky and Zen and her. It's good to have a woman in that mix. Anyway, so I meet her. Ralph Nader is announced as a Green Party thing. I meet Seize the Day, and I video this thing with this John Acree and Jane Acree and Steve Wilson were anchor people for Fox News, a husband-wife anchor team. And all this thing happened within a 3-day conference, and I went to all these things, and one of them was in nanotechnology in 2000. I went to a nanotechnology talk in the year 2000. People still don't know in 2023 what nanotech even is. I mean, it was off the hook to hear that information back then. And plus, I'm involved in all this other wall falling down stuff. But the parallel is that next day, after 2.5 days teaching, they had the thing on the park, and before it opened, they put me on stage to open it as a poet, just because Pelletier was standing next to me when I was trying to say to this band from England called Seize the Day, which wrote songs about transgenic kids, Seize the Day? Yeah. Okay, so I meet them and I'm telling them I got this song where you guys sing. I'm just in the early lyric writing phase. And Pelletier hears me and he goes, so there's snipers in the air, because the media trumped it up. They knew there was 3.5 days of teaching. They knew that, but they just had the thing and they say, stay home, there's going to be violence in Boston, right? And the Bread and Puppets was there, you know them? So they took away their pots and pans for the other thing, for the next protest. They took away their pots and pans. Anyway, I got thrown on stage, and that's a whole other story, and we'll tell another time. I want to try and bridge these worlds right now for this conversation. So they put me on stage, and I did an a cappella song about not shooting people for making love in the street. And I got 1,000 people in the audience. It was 25,000 people. It was the biggest thing. And it just happened right on the spot. And the guy who asked me is the same guy who built the stage for Woodstock. And I was living in his backyard. Well, the whole thing happened with the next one. And that's another story. So that is where the person that came on after me was the person from the biotech. And she said, thank you for breaking the ice, because she didn't want to be the first speaker. Because there were helicopters in the air, snipers on the roof, and then a team of horses and things protecting the people at inside the convention center up the street, which everyone went from the talks and all the speakers from around the world, and and the puppets went down the street, and I got videotaped from the top of a bus. It was brilliant. I hardly ever looked at it. I have all kinds of footage about that, by the way, if anybody who wants to do. I've got footage I never used from that era. So the next day in the newspaper, they listed the Genetic Bill of Rights in the Boston Globe, and that Ralph Nader has been nominated by the Green Party to run for president. And that's where I got the idea. I'm not a painter, but these words needs to be on canvas. 7 years later, I'm living in Washington with Mariam Maradian, who is a painter, and I took the initial canvases that I started with, and I said, well, you do the paintings, there's the number, I'm going to write the words inside, and that's what happened. And that's a whole nother long, deep story, which is also on the internet, because years later, the magazine interviewed us about the paintings, and we're the cover story of a Gene Watch magazine. And based on that, they had another conference in New York, and they flew us out. And they flew me out, and I stood at they put me up at the Chelsea Hotel, and they said that I could speak for 15 minutes, and I told that story 3 years later. That video's on the internet. It's got 30 views or whatever. You know how that goes. So anyway, but it tells the story of that. So then another guy took over the head of that, and this guy, the second person, was a lawyer, and then there's this really sad violin story, which I'm not going to get into because it involves DID, and my ex, who's no longer with us, who on some level I could say I was unofficially married to a cyborg. How's that for a lead-in with no follow-through? So it's a true story. So anyway, if there's nothing that could be done then, and it still got buried, and then it went international into some protocol and got buried in the UN, it disappeared, and we still don't have it. Those paintings exist. And I'm trying to get those paintings into the world somehow, but I have to get up every day and do my life one day, just like you're doing this thing one day at a time. So there's only so much an artist can do, but a lot of us have a backlog. Like she just told her story from her young years, from 18 to what, about? When you left the job at the factory and went to the other job. When you left the toxic job and got the night school. You went to school, that's where you left off.
I went to school for 6 months to CPI, Computer Processing Institute.
Okay.
And then they were obligated, the school had like a great record of getting everybody a job. Okay.
Okay.
So they gave me a job, but before they gave me a job, everybody was trying to get into Aetna, in Hartford, and the people at the school said, "Don't apply to Aetna. You're never going to get in there. Everybody's applying there. They're only taking a few people, and here's this other job, And I worked processing bank checks, for a bank, like a company that did actually all the banks in Connecticut.
Oh, wow.
It's like card readers and checks and...
Okay. Data processing.
Yeah.
It was called, right?
Yeah, data processing.
Punch cards.
Punch cards. I know those punch cards.
Oh, God. Did that...
And that was in Wallingford.
Was that a little better money?
It was okay, not really.
No.
But on my own, I applied to Aetna.
Oh?
Okay.
And
I wasn't liking the job that I got at the bank thing. So anyway, I got called for an interview, and he ended up being my boss, but this is what he said to me. He said, "I'm looking at your record, and you did go to computer school." He said, "but for 6 months, it's a 6-month thing."
Right.
He says, "But I see that you worked in all these factories," and he said, "and the reason why I'm calling you here today is my sister has worked in factories all her life, and she never tried to do anything different or better her situation. And I see that you're trying to do that, so I'm going to hire you."
Oh.
So he hired me.
Wow. So you struck out,
money.
finally crossed paths with a
Then I
human
had
being,
money, right?
almost. Yeah. That was,
So,
run of bad luck had to end somewhere.
so I had a job, at
Sarcasm. Okay, good.
And I worked at it.
And that paid?
Yeah, and that paid. They paid good. But when I told the other place I was leaving to go to Aetna...
I'm guessing you finally went out and got a sandwich.
No, but the president of the company came to me and he said, "What, do you think you're going to meet the president of Aetna, when you take this other job? We're a family here and we have, picnics, in the summer and all this other stuff." And I said, I think I'm going to go for the money. And I left, put my notice in, and I went to work at Aetna. And I stayed there,
So they knew did they have a hint they were going to lose you?
No, no, I told them that.
So they just threw you a big, hollow promise of you going from punch card operator to president.
No, I wasn't a president, but I was a computer operator.
Right.
So.
And it wasn't the piece of paper with the little yellow holes in it. These were the next level.
No, I remember the reels of the tape, and
Oh, you did have the yellow,
the tape drives and stuff.
Oh wow, there was still okay.
You had to thread the tape through. All this stuff.
It was yellow like legal pad, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. When I was in high school, that was the computer they had. Dr. Gale, I remember that guy. One of the few teachers that would actually, 10 minutes of my entire 12 years in school was this one guy who said, "Hey, you're a human being."
I do want to say that when I went to computer school, they taught us, thank goodness they taught us,
ourselves and trust that there is some kind of higher truth in life, but we live at a lower vibration. Somebody said out there is that when that happened, it was a lower vibration. He criticized Kerouac or something like that when he was sexist at one point in time, something like that. And he said that was a lower vibration. And if you look at Tesla and David Bohm, the physicists that were ostracized because physics is pretty much what we know. And my life, that's why I named my project Funk Physics, because I found out that I'm not dumb, stupid, slow, and retarded. I'm a thinker and a questioner, and I want to know who we are, what we are, where we are, why we are, and I don't want to trust anybody. Even Annie had this thing about no trust. Even with her, I was born a poor black child story, which is just was going to bullshit about, which is a whole other story. You got to watch that video. These are priceless, by the way. So they do dovetail. They do dovetail as like, what is physics and what is a poet? There's almost the same path. That's how it happened to me. It's like, who are we? What are we? Why are we? Don't lie to me. I want to just know the truth, and the truth that I know might end up being replaced by a higher truth. It's the same thing, but it doesn't have the same language. You know, it's like I never knew when you got a Texas Instrument, I go, what's these numbers and the things on the side? It's another language. I just thought I wasn't smart enough to understand it, and that's what they told me I was. So that's why this is a conversation more than an interview, because when poets talk to each other, when artists talk to each other, when creatives talk to each other, and they step outside their field and their medium, and they have these open-minded, there's so much more to who we are and how we became what we became through a myriad of choices. Your story is filled with so many choices of the heart. You chose your mother over school. You chose your sense of relationship and responsibility over the machine shop thing, and then the other machine shop thing and a chemical. If you were a typical American, you would have run to a lawyer, and the rest of your life would have been one long lawsuit. And then you would have waited for 30 years, and maybe if you got the money, it would have ruined you. Maybe you did the right thing. You know, a check in the mail, and by the time you get it, you got a $100,000 settlement. Here's your $10,000, and you buy a car and you're broke again. The lawyer got it all. So, never wait for a dead man's shoes was one of my grandfather's favorite things to say to me when I was a little kid. Never wait for a dead man's shoes, because I know people who've done that. Oh, I'm going to sue. I'm going to be a millionaire, and it takes 30 years to get it. And they spend their whole life waiting for this big ticket. By the time the lawyer takes their share, it's not even a year's salary. And they've waited 10 years thinking they're going to be rich, and now their personality has changed, who they are.
But what I was telling you about, doing without food and all that, to take care of my mother and let her not suffer. Okay?
Yeah.
That has really made me who I am today, where I don't want anyone to suffer like I did. I think that's what drives me. I don't want anyone to suffer like that. That did affect me, of course. How could it not affect you, right?
Yeah. Well, what you did
and it also.
But you could have not. Many people in that situation would have chosen reality or survival over love, and you didn't.
Yeah.
You chose love over survival, and that's the essence of how I think what makes us human and not give up. And the people you're lifting are people who...
Well, I always say, don't ever take anyone's hope away. I don't care if the planet is almost dead or whatever. The reality of whatever's happening in the world, okay? Don't ever take anyone's hope away.
Is that a good note to leave on?
Yeah.
Don't ever take anyone's hope away. Debbie Tosun Kilday, thank you very much. This has been a priceless day and a priceless set of conversations. And
you didn't expect that.
the joy, the happiness, the beauty, the optimism, the laughter, nobody took anybody's hope away. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Great job.